Imagine yourself in a room no larger than the average kitchen. There are some lockers to the left, plain white cabinets are catty-cornered to the right, a shelf holds a container of coffee K-cups, a blackboard lists a vacation schedule, and employee street clothes decorate the wet floor like some lost remnants of high school. The ceiling is a drop, the type that hides all kinds of secrets just a few inches above the plaster. It's leaking now. Water covers the wet floor at about 4 inches deep, and that number is climbing fast. A bulb flickers over your head. It's the only remaining source of light in the night. Now jam that room with more than a dozen sweating strangers, and pump them full of anxiety of an impending unnatural disaster. I had to say something to them. The remaining survivors in the room stared at me like bloodthirsty hyenas. The questions they shouted sounded a lot like that too. I'd been here before, only hours before. It was easy to forget. It felt like a millennia. What happened to Marcus? A familiar voice shouted from by the lockers. What happened to Michael? Someone else shouted back. I couldn't move my mouth to make the words this poor widow needed to hear. Instead, I just shook my head. Marcus's wife screamed so loud that I thought the glass might break. It was enough to make the other people in the cramped room shudder and shift uncomfortably. Some actually tried to move away from her, like me with the mad cow. But there was nowhere to go. That horrible, heart-shattering, gobsmacking scream reached down into my insides. I quickly tried to explain myself on a heap of word vomit and broken sentences as water pounded the quickly growing puddles around us. Michael, he locked the door. He locked us out. I sputtered as fast as possible. Marcus, he fell over the edge. The room fell silent, save for the poor woman's tears. I tried to make her pain swift, like taking off a band-aid, I told myself. Right? He's dead. I'm sorry. The second chilling scream filled the room. Marcus's children wrapped their arms around their sobbing mother's legs and buried their heads in the folds of her dress. 13 disappointed faces stared back at me. I stared back, defiant, trying to defend myself against any further inquiries. Then I started to break down. Tiffany appeared at my side again. She was drenched from head to toe, with the tie somehow managing to hold her long hair out of her eyes. She looked beautiful then. Where do we go? She asked. I shook my head. I don't know. The children managed to fall asleep. A few of us propped up an old table and laid them on it side by side. We wrapped our remaining dry jackets around them. The kids took to snoring soon after. They looked like 5 little pigs in a blanket by the end. I made the joke aloud, but nobody laughed. There was more than a foot of water in the room by now. It wouldn't be safe for anybody to lie down on the floor, but Kevin did anyway. We didn't stop him. The rest of the adults also tried to close their eyes, in whatever way they could. The majority of them huddled in the corner together, for warmth and leverage. Tiffany and I had agreed to take first watch. With the way the water was rising, none of us expected that to last long. We would need to have a plan. But everyone had been running around a fucking Costco for hours fighting for their lives. They needed some rest. When most folks weren't listening, Tiffany slid up beside me. "What did you see?" she whispered. I hesitated. "You tell me, and I'll tell you." Jake, Ellen, and Liz soon caught wind of our conversation and they quietly shuffled over. The rest of the group stayed quiet. Nobody wanted to wake up the window. "The snow turned to rain a couple hours ago," Tiffany murmured. "Kevin suggests we get to higher ground anyways. Plus, we wanted to find you guys. 2 minutes later, the store got hit by a fucking tsunami. It's gotta be a few feet deep down there now. I had to swim out. We got to the stairs just in time. All 13 of us survived, thanks to Kevin." Liz and Ellen nodded enthusiastically while eyeing the exhausted middle-aged man lying just above the water. "We think he's okay," Jake offered. "He just needs some sleep." We started on the morning shift together. I nodded, but something about the story didn't fit. "You said 13? Jake hesitated this time. "Yeah, we counted once we got here, just to be sure. Why?" Shit. "We had 16 before Martin went outside, including me. Then you lost her. Me, Michael, and Marcus. 12. You should have had 12. They all stared ahead stupidly. "Don't you see what I'm saying?" I whispered in a panic. "How the fuck did you get another person?" We all turned our attention to the pile of human bodies huddled together in the corner. A few of them breathed steadily under the cover of the garbage bags, spare clothes, and paper bags. Somebody snored by the lockers. The children stood on the table beside them, but underneath it all, a small sound snuck out. Chewing. The next few things happened quite suddenly. Kevin slipped under the water. Jeff rushed over to help him. Marcus's widow was the first one sleeping to open her eyes. She looked shocked at first, like a proper lady who just sat on a piece of gum. When she screamed, again, I think most people just thought it was still her being upset about her husband. Nobody reacted in time. Nobody noticed the red tint of the river forming around Kevin. Nobody noticed the slight disturbances in the water. Nobody noticed the children missing from the table. But I did. Just before it happened, the pieces of our situation started to slide in formation. I could feel a presence in the room with us. I could smell its rot. I could hear the horrible gnashing and biting growing louder. I could almost hear the tearing of flesh. Then, an avalanche of fresh water poured in through the vents. I could see the creatures coming inside. I wanted to save Kevin. I wanted to save everyone. I wanted to save myself, too. But I didn't have time. Cue the hysteria. Thick ribbons of dark red blood melded in with the floodwater. A dozen or more survivors struggled to stay afloat in the cramped locker room. Some of them tried to swim away from the carnage, away from the creatures, but they didn't get far. Kevin never made it back to the surface. The children never even had a chance to scream. The widow fought with 3-foot-long leeches attached to her vocal cords. I had to act. I had to act. I had to act. I remembered that the pockmarked scaffolding outside the room provided some relief from the flood. If I opened the door, I thought we could evacuate the existing water from the room. "We need to open the door!" I shouted breathlessly over my shoulder to anyone who would listen. "Somebody help me!" But only Tiffany and Jake could follow. The three of us struggled with the jam handle for a moment. The water made it almost impossible to open. Just as something slimy brushed up against my leg, we pushed it free. And my plan worked, in a beautifully chaotic fashion. An avalanche of brinty water, broken bodies, and enormous leeches flew out into the open scaffolding. I wrapped my hand onto the railing, and just had to hold on. I just had to hold on. My fellow survivors did not die quietly. Most of them slipped over the edge screaming, some of them bumping the side on their way down. I know, for instance, that Ellen is still alive before the fall. Her panicked brown eyes reached out to me, hopefully, just before she lost her grip. I tried to reach my hand out to help, but I had to survive. I had to survive. She dropped unceremoniously into an ocean of boxes below the scaffolding and landed with a sickening splash on the intersection of aisle 6. She didn't splash. She didn't resurface. But another thick ribbon of blood confirmed my suspicion. I didn't see the children die, thank God for that. That alone. Because Jake did. Jake swore he heard the children crying well into the night. 3 survivors sat on the scaffolding above Costco. We looked and felt like a trio of waterlogged rats. We were the hopeless remnants of a catastrophe. The building appeared to be quiet. There were still the unusual sounds. Rainwater dripped in through the roof, the walls creaked uneasily. The power struggled for a while longer, but the lights gave way sometime around midnight. It was dark then. And then, we could hear everything, even the things we didn't want to hear. "What now?" Tiffany asked in between frightened sobs. "What in the frozen fucking hell are we supposed to do now?" I shrugged, despondently. I pulled my cell phone from my pocket. The slick, black screen seemed foreign, like a remnant of some age where things still made sense. I clicked the home button. Amazingly, it worked. "I'm gonna write this down," I started. "You know what I think?" Jake interrupted. "I think they're watching us. I think they're judging us. I think you could type away on that fucking cell phone all night, kid, and it won't make one lick of a difference by morning. This is God's doing." He spat lazily into the ocean below us, and then tilted his head in the direction of the cross on my neck. I didn't even realize I still had it on. You should know that. A good Catholic kid like you, God gets his due. God always gets his due. It was the first thing I typed. "What do you mean by they?" Tiffany asked. She was crying now, openly. Her sobs filled the void. Why would God want to hurt us? Why would anyone want to hurt us? I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't want to die in there. I don't want to die tonight. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. Convulsions overtook her tiny little body as she shook in place. I wrapped my arms around her shoulders and pulled her close. Her cries started to die down. Honestly, man, the way we treat this planet, we toss our shit in the rivers, and our rivers in the shitters, and then we wonder why the islands are drowning. It's past time that God has hit the reset button. Jake laughed his own stupid joke. Past fucking time. He still needs us, right? There's no fucking game without player 1 and player 2, right? You can't continue. He slammed on the scaffolding in anger. Stop it, man. She's had enough, I snapped angrily. Just walk into the light. Tiffany whispered low, so low only I could hear. Just walk into the light. I wanted to ask her what she meant. I wanted to ask how she knew about the light. But the scaffolding started to shake. Again. The three of us sat up violently and gripped the railing. Someone was walking. No. I remembered his footsteps started to reverberate somewhere on the other end. Please, God, no. We couldn't see anything. The entire warehouse remained without light. The scaffolding continued to shake for a few moments. Jake got to his feet and stood in front of us protectively. The footsteps stopped. They paused a few yards into the black abyss ahead. Who's there? Jake asked. Michael, if that's you, you're not fucking welcome here, man. We know what you did. You're an animal. Get the fuck away from us. Nobody replied. Michael, I'm serious, man. We're armed. Jake turned back to me and shrugged. I started to say something back, but as suddenly as they had arrived, the footsteps turned into a sprint. The scaffolding shook so severely that I had to hold on to Tiffany to keep her from falling over the edge. Everything happened so suddenly. In seconds, the step reached Jake. I wanted to get up and help him, but doing so would have assuredly sent Tiffany into the water. I couldn't see the shape in front of him. I couldn't see anything of the struggle that ensued. But I could see the axe slip into his head. Jake turned around to face us. I'll never forget the dumbfounded expression on his face. Several inches of shrapnel metal stuck out from the gaping wound right in his forehead. That poor guy still managed to make his facial features appear surprised. I mumbled something to him. I think I told him it would be okay. I didn't know what the fuck to say. A moment later, the shape behind Jake pushed his body, and it slipped to the wet floor. He slipped over the 4-foot-high railings and fell to his death in the warehouse below. Michael appeared in front of our eyes, and he laughed. In spite of everything, in spite of the outright murder of my friends, in spite of the horrible depravity of the things he did, in spite of this absurd fucking storm that he could have caused, that sick motherfucker laughed. Anger bubbled inside of me like a virus. It was something about the tone of that laugh. The absolute lack of empathy set me on fire. Tiffany whispered something in my ear, but I couldn't hear anything anymore. I could see the scaffolding start to slip and dip dangerously, but it didn't register quite right. The only emotion that seemed to consume me in that moment seemed to be my fury. I launched myself at Michael like a lion. In seconds, my hand were around his nimble, strained neck. My knees were up against his chest. I slammed his head into the pockmarked floor over and over again. Blood seeped out of his mouth like a leaky faucet, but the man just continued to laugh. I punched him in the face. He was old. He withered easily by my blows. I broke his teeth, then his nose. I hit him until both my own fists were bleeding. But Michael just kept laughing. Good boy, he croaked through a cracked voice box. Good boy. You've become chaos. I delivered one more satisfying uppercut to Michael's cheekbone and tossed him over the edge of the walkway, like discarded trash. He landed with a very satisfying smack. And then, the scaffolding started to slip. I heard Tiffany scream one last time right before she fell. I saw her hand find purchase in the railing while her body drifted like a rag doll, 20 feet higher than the tallest aisle sign. Then, one moment of hope reinvigorated me. I rushed over to her, reached down to grab the falling blonde. Just like I'd seen in all my favorite action scenes. But our hands didn't clasp perfectly. I didn't pull her up into safety and save her life. Tiffany fell from 50 feet above the ground and landed on top of the aisle marker in dairy. She died instantly. Alone in the darkness. The monsters will surely find me, and then they will see. I will make them see. I wrote that down shortly before the sun rose on January 13th. I thought it might be my sign-off. The floodwater receded slowly over the hours. I couldn't see it from my spot in the remaining scaffolding, but I could hear it. The sensation seemed familiar to someone pulling the plug in the bottom of a massive tub. I wondered what horrors awaited once the water went away. What could be left? Extreme heat? Desert-like conditions? And dried-up milk cartons? I knew I wanted to die. I welcomed the idea more than any other possibility. My feet dangled over the edge like a child on a swing set. I knew it could end with a jump, I just wanted to write it all down. I only wanted someone to see. Quite suddenly, a voice cracked over the loudspeaker. A man spoke with a patient southern drawl. He paid no mind to my impending fate. He spoke as if there was an audience of 100 shoppers listening. Thank you for coming to Costco. This has been a test of your emergency readiness. The simulation between chaos and order has now ended. The candidate has been recognized and recorded. We kindly ask that all remaining customers proceed into the light. I don't know what happened next. I'll never know, because I never wrote it down. Sometimes I remember being pushed. Sometimes I remember the fall. Sometimes I think it's just imagined. Sometimes I don't remember anything at all. What I do know is that I opened my eyes in a packed Costco shortly before closing time. Bright, white light drifted down from the overhead fluorescence. The warm sounds of chattering voices and nervous laughter filled the warehouse. A man appeared in front of my eyes. He held a crying child with one hand and a packet of cherries in the other. Seriously, they're saying it's gonna be biblical, man. I sprinted towards the door. I can't explain my reaction. Then, because I didn't know what just happened, my memory of the past 24 hours had been erased entirely. Even still, it was as though every fiber of my being told me to run. It was an instinctual response. Get to the door. Get to the car. Go home. Open your phone. But just before I walked out the doors into the white wilderness, a packed parking lot in front of me, a man grabbed my arm. He looked no older than 45. He wore a short-sleeve office shirt, which seemed strange in this weather. With perfect blonde hair, parted down the middle. He held a sack of envelopes, and he eagerly stuffed one of them into my hand. When he spoke, it was with a slow, southern drawl, and a timid tone I just couldn't place at the time. Congratulations. Sir hath made us kings and priests. I smiled. Revelations, right? Congratulations on what? He smiled back. Stay safe. This next storm could be the last. The good Lord may hit reset. He'll always need player 1 and player 2. I thanked the crazy guy and took his paper, and drove home. There I found 20 new notes and voice messages on my phone. February 5th, 2019, 3:30. This weekend's forecast calls for snow. Well, that was Inclement Weather, Large Animals, and Other Strange Happenings Outside of Costco in New Jersey by Matt Richardsen. If you enjoyed, then please do consider liking and subscribing, as well as checking out his subreddit, which will be linked in the description below and the pinned comment. If you have any stories of your own you'd like to see narrated on the channel, be it true or fictional or, well, horror stories in general, then please do consider submitting them on my subreddit. It would really mean the world to me. That is also linked in the description below. Also, consider following me on Twitter for memes, thoughts, and updates. And on top of that, please do consider checking out my other channel, where I failed at attempting to be funny. It's mostly story times, response videos, and soon, hopefully, movie critiques. Long-form movie critiques, similar to what Mahler does on his channel. Anyway, this is Lost Testament, signing off.